Hi everyone, we'll be waiting for people to join. Let me quickly invite Dr. Smriti. Hi everyone, hi. So nice, thank you so much for joining. Hi, Dr. Smriti is here already.
Hi, Shalini.
Hi, guys, I hope all of you can hear our voice. Hi, Bhavna. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to be talking. This is a part two of the gut health series. While we wait for more people to join, I'm just kind of talking about last week we had a very interesting discussion about how the importance of gut health. What is gut health? Our gut microbiome, this, trillions of bacteria in our large intestine from our mouth to the entire digestive tract, how important, what functions do they do we learned about how they have a role in allergies, in for good skin, for good hair, for digestion, for even secreting some of the hormones, for our good memory, autism and things like that. It's all linked to the brain and the gut and the brain, and so many functions are linked. So the entire live session is actually on Dr. Smriti's account. Please go to the IGTV and check that out. Today we will be talking about the food and the lifestyle changes that we need to do to improve our gut health. Yeah. Since this is like the practical session, a lot of tips to take away. I'm excited to share. Dr. Smriti and me are both excited to share that with you all, for your kids and for you. So don't keep thinking about the kid only. Please think about yourself too. These are for your family, for yourself. Take care of yourself first. Also, that's important. And then automatically, when you bring those lifestyle changes with you, your kid will follow it naturally. Okay. So let's begin. I think we have enough people. Welcome, Dr. Smriti. So Dr. Smriti is like a consultant dermatologist in Fortis, Mulund, Mumbai. She has over 9 years experience in this field, and she's also going to be a pediatric dermatologist. She's got a scholarship for that. Um, yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
most important is that we both are extremely passionate about kids' health and kids' nutrition and how to get them eat well and, overall bring up the immunity, bring up their health in everybody in the society.
Thank you, Shalini. So I agree with you. It all started, the journey started as being mothers ourselves,
Yeah,
thinking about our children and how to take care of the overall family. Because as they say, children don't learn by teaching, they just learn by observing. So when the whole
yes,
family is following a lifestyle and a way of, eating, which is healthy, the children, just follow and you don't have to coax. And
yes.
when it comes to the practice, I am a dermatologist and I always think like, why I should be talking about food with my patients, but eventually it happens in all my prescriptions also. I'll be discussing recipes with my teenagers, with my parents, and all those things. The reason is very simple. The skin is mirror of internal body and mind. So skin is actually the reflection. It is your mirror. Whenever something is wrong inside your body, it comes first on skin. So when I used to see patients having allergies and then they're also having constipation. Some patient is having hair fall and he or she is also having bloating. A young boy is having gray hair problems and he is just not able to digest good food or he's not having fruits. So it was invariably my duty to, correct the root cause of the problem so that the skin manifestations don't occur. And this all started as a journey and it has always helped my patients in treatment beyond prescription, where
Yeah,
after few months when the problem is corrected, the patient becomes his or her own doctor. He knows, the mother knows, the parent knows for life what they should do so that they never get a problem again. And this all started with, discussing and talking about food and lifestyle. And of course,
nutrition.
that's why the discussions with Shalini.
Amazing. So let's quickly get started. So our gut bacteria, right? There are millions of them from our mouth to our large intestine. So I wanted to talk about just conceptually give an idea of how foods can actually create an imbalance. Okay. So in our gut, there is good bacteria and bad bacteria, right? So we want the good ones to thrive and the bad ones to die or not exist at all, right? That's how we're going to have a great health. So a simple example, okay? So I'm a very sensitive person personally, and foods kind of can give me a quick change immediately. In a day, I can notice something bad or something great. So in the lockdown, we all have not eaten outside food so much as before, more home cooked food and stuff. So after a long time, I had a lot of jalebis at night, okay? Which is and then the next day, I could kind of realize that my tongue felt really weird. There was a white layer, and I felt like something is wrong. And then normal days, I'm like as fresh and nothing is everything is fine. But this day, I realized that it was like the sugar that was I ate, and it kind of caused an imbalance. And it took about 2 days to come back to normal. The feel when you get up in the morning. So this was an example that kind of immediately related to the gut health session, that foods can have a big impact in terms of the balance of the good and the bad bacteria. Now, overall, just as the how we're going to talk about this whole session is we're going to talk about 4 broad topics. One is prebiotics, okay, which is basically the food that we're going to feed the good bacteria to keep them alive, to make them multiply and grow. Second, we're talking about probiotics, which means you're going to take in the live bacteria. So sometimes it happens that in illness, in antibiotics, or some other reasons, they die. And we have very little of them. So to kind of multiply more rapidly, we take in probiotics, which is the live bacteria in, and then start feeding in them prebiotics to multiply. We give them food and then they multiply. The third thing we're going to talk about is what are the things that we're doing that are killing the good bacteria. Okay, we're also doing something wrong in our lifestyle, in our foods, that are killing the good bacteria without any reason. The fourth thing is that we want the bad ones to die. So what are the foods and the lifestyles that we can practice to kill the bad bacteria naturally in a good lifestyle way? And Dr. Smriti is going to talk about something very new in this field of gut health, which is called postbiotics. And this is going to be kept at the last, and we'll take all your questions related to gut health for kids, for yourself at the end. So hope this format is okay, and we'll quickly start about the prebiotics, which is basically the food for the good bacteria. How are we going to feed them, keep them alive, and multiply? Yeah. Yes, Smriti, doctor, over to you.
All right. So, first of all, as Shalini had mentioned, we have trillions of bacteria in our gut. Now, gut definitely starts from our mouth and goes until anus. But here, the gut microbiome, for now, for this subtopic that we are talking about, is the one that is largely in the large intestine, because that is the gut bacteria that creates a defense mechanism, to prevent the toxins from entering, the allergens from entering. And that is also the gut microbiome that creates very important vitamins, the vitamins like B12, the vitamins like biotin, the vitamins like vitamin K, and many other amino acids also. We have around 300 to 500 different species of bacteria in our gut. And they say that why it is very important for our early foods listeners is because the gut microbiome is a bit different in infancy, right? And by the age of 2.5 years, which is the toddler age, the gut microbiome becomes as same as adults.
Okay.
And now people are saying the gut microbiome is so different for every single human being that it can be equated to the fingerprints.
Wow.
Your gut microbiome defining you, just like your fingerprint defines you. So
Pfizer.
this conception, pregnancy, 1 year as well as till 2.5 years are really, really, really important years for us to inculcate all the good habits. And if I may so in a practical terms, when they become teenagers, they're as such not going to listen to you. So better to have the good habits when they are listening to you. So from 1 to 2.5 years, it's very, very important for us. So when we come to prebiotics, so the very simple definition is that prebiotics is the food for bacteria. Probiotics is the bacteria. And then the postbiotics are the end products of the bacteria, which will come later on. So what is the food for bacteria? So that our infant and our toddler and our children are going to grow those bacteria. The bacteria, in a very simple way, they thrive on something called as fiber. So what are the foods that have fiber? There are insoluble fibers and there are soluble fibers. Insoluble fibers are there in grains. Now, by grains, people think it is cereals, wheat and rice. But they forget that that is millets. The millets are the main important grains which have fiber in the concentric circles, where Shalini will tell you more about. She knows better than me. And there are soluble fibers which are there in your fruits and vegetables. And the fibers are also there in your legumes. Legumes means pulses. Your peanuts is a legume. Your beans are legumes. And there are nuts and seeds. They are all fiber-rich foods. When you consume them in a good quantity, they become your staple diet. They become the major chunk of your diet. Even if you go for, and I'm repeating that from the last time, if you remember your food pyramid when you used to learn in primary, and now the moms will be relearning with their school going kids. In that food pyramid, the lowermost was your grains, cereals, and legumes. The millets, cereals, and legumes, the peanuts, the pulses. Above that used to come, that has to be taken in the largest quantity. Above that comes with one lesser quantity is your fruits and vegetables. Again, fiber rich. Above that used to come your minimal quantity of dairy and non-veg products. And above that used to come junk. Right? So what does not have fiber? That does not have fiber is your dairy, is your animal foods, whether it is seafood, meat, poultry, egg, everything. And what does not have fiber is your ultra processed refined foods. So if you think that I am taking a cake and a muffin and a bread made of maida, and that is going to have a lot of fiber in it, it is not so, because maida is stripped of fiber. Very polished white rice is stripped of fiber. Ultra refined sugar is stripped of fiber. And they actually are the good food for bad bacteria. Very simply, we cannot see what is happening in our large intestine, but we can see what is happening in our teeth and gums when we take lots of lollipops and lots of chocolates and we end up into caries. So if those were good bacteria, those germs were good bacteria, they will be thriving in our teeth very well, right? But they are ruining the teeth. They are killing the teeth. And they are making us go for root canal treatment. So they are definitely not good bacteria. And they always happen because of excessive sugar, excessive ultra-processed, ultra-refined foods.
Yeah.
So these are basically the prebiotics. You want to add something on this?
Simple concept. You want to starve the bad bacteria. So you don't give them the food that they like, which means you want to give the food to a lot of food to the good ones, and you want to starve the bad bacteria. That's the whole simple concept, right? If you give them a lot of sugar and a lot of maida and a lot of toxins, which are in the form of heavy metals and stuff, these are the food for the bad bacteria. So they will grow and multiply. So we'll keep them low and we'll keep our fiber rich foods and vegetables and millets and stuff higher. Now, one thing I wanted to just add, Dr. Smriti, since you said about millets and why soaking is very important. So it's not just that a lot of questions you guys have. Why do we soak millets? Why do we soak our legumes? Our nuts, why do we soak the nuts? So there are many reasons. So one is that a lot of the anti-nutrient properties that are there, it comes down. Okay, what are these anti-nutrient properties? They are basically something that our bodies cannot digest. It's like I did a reel in which it's like a treasure box inside which there's a, say for example, calcium is there and there's a covering. Okay, it doesn't open up if you don't soak. So if you soak, it's kind of a process where you're opening the treasures, you're breaking open all those barriers, and it's easier for our body to access the calcium, access the minerals, access the fiber. That's easy for our gut bacteria to digest. If we don't soak the millets, if we don't soak them for 4 to 6 hours, even overnight you can soak, there is no harm. Soak your dal, even moong dal, please soak it for 2-3 hours, especially for our babies, for kids. Don't go into, I will make it in an instant in a pressure cooker, because our body has to digest it ultimately. Okay, so and it can become gassy, sometimes it can lead to swelling in our body. Then that's why kids also refuse from eating food, because they have felt something unusual in their body, discomfort, so then they start refusing. So follow these traditional practices of soaking the millet for 6 hours. The reason, most important reason, is unlike rice and wheat, where the fiber structure is on the outside like a husk. If you polish it, it's gone. Okay, but millets have concentric layers of fiber inside the grain. So even if you polish the outer grain, there is still some amount of fiber that is left inside, and the soaking will make the water reach inside, and then we can easily digest it. Okay, so that's the reason. So make sure, along with not just eating these foods, you process them in a right way and consume it. Okay, even in our porridge mixes, for millet porridge mixes, we follow the same practice. We soak them for 6 hours overnight, dry them, then powder them, and then pack them as porridge mixes and stuff. So yeah, that's about prebiotics. So let's
Sprouted ragi porridges. Yes, and that is what is recommended also initially when we are giving the first foods to the baby. Ragi halwa is a very common thing. So they always prefer sprouted ragi halwa because the porridge, of course. So that is what is the same funda behind that. And yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah, and I've also noticed that when I soak the millets, they double in size and they're softer to eat.
Yes.
Sometimes if you don't soak, it becomes like little
Very hard.
stones, little
Yes.
stony feeling. But that's also like good
Yeah.
taste.
So as they say, that it is about the gut feeling, right? So our kids, their gut feelings are very strong. So
Yeah.
when their gut is so immature also, that it immediately responds and immediately reacts. So your foods, if the kid is getting bloating sensation and all those things, that itself is a marker that maybe you are going overboard on fiber, or maybe you are not processing the fiber, like soaking and everything. You are not doing those cooking practices right, because if you do not give any fiber foods to the kid, right, or you do not take yourself, then also you will get bloating and all those sensation with weak gut because of the lack of bacteria. But if you overdo with the fiber and you
Yeah.
take too much of undigestible fiber, then also you will get bloating, because then maybe you can say that excess of everything is bad. So your good bacteria is getting too much of fiber. So it is creating too much of gas inside you, as a digestion process of that bacteria, of that fiber. So it is causing bloating. And the same thing comes with green leafy vegetables. So traditionally, we also always say green leafy vegetables should be cooked. And if at all, even in Western countries where now green smoothies are a big thing, they always say that, for example, if it is spinach or anything, take only once a week. as green smoothie. Now, this is I'm telling about adults, of course. But the idea is that they also have anti-nutrients like phytates and all those things. They also have to be cooked or better to be steamed, of course. It's better to steam than boil the green leafy. Coming to the fibers, the soluble fibers of your vegetables and fruits. I always say till you have teeth, eat your fruit. For example, orange, it has fiber in it, but orange juice does not. So fruit juices is not recommended unless you are taking the pulp with it. Like we explained last time, Mosmi juice, take the pulp with it. Similarly, if you are taking the soups, don't strain it and eat only what is left behind, and just the pulp has to be eaten. The other thing is excess doing of the fiber. So I know many people who will be taking their wheat ka atta and putting extra husk in it so that it becomes richer in fiber. That is not what is suggested. Instead, increase your variety. Make wheat and single hand pounded rice as just 1 or 2 varieties and include 10-15 more varieties of millets, so that any particular one grain gets only once or twice a week time for you to ingest it, so that you have more variety. And that's why every single variety have a different bacteria. We have 500 species after all, so we cannot keep feeding a single food all the time.
Correct. And yeah, the same thing. So if you're, for example, you're choosing little millet, okay? We cannot go on eating little millet the whole week. Switch from little millet to kodo millet to barnyard millet, ragi and bajra and jowar and stuff. So the key, very important thing that she pointed out, Dr. Smriti pointed out, is that we have 500 different strains of bacteria. Let's think like there are 500 types of jobs, okay? One is a carpenter, one is a woodcutter, one is an electrician, one is a doctor, one is a policeman. So there are different societies of these bacteria, and each bacteria need a different kind of food. So that's why we keep saying that increase your variety of food, so that we can have a huge variety and strains of bacteria in our stomach, so that we are ready to fight anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And eat them in the right forms. That's also
Yes.
very important.
Very important.
Okay. Now let's talk about probiotics. Yes. What are probiotics, Dr. Smriti?
So as I told, so prebiotics are the food for the bacteria. They will help the bacteria in your gut to grow, right? But probiotics are the similar live bacteria, which you can actually ingest in. You can take in and support your system and maybe increase those good bacterial species in you. So those probiotic bacteria, they can come in certain foods and they can come in certain supplements. The food part, Shalini will be telling you better. The supplement part, I will take in.
Yeah, let's start with the supplements actually. So there are many commercial probiotic drinks that are come in the market. There are supplements that you prescribe. Sometimes some kids have loose motions or vomiting or food poisoning, or they have a dose of antibiotics. So there is a supplement that you give. You can talk about that first.
Yeah. So here, basically, I would always suggest, and the studies are there to prove it, that supplements do not substitute food. So you have to be very clear about it, that supplements do not substitute food. I get many teenagers, I get many people who are like, even younger kids, we are giving them this particular supplement mixed in their milk to make them more heighted. Or we are giving them this supplement as a teenage to mix in their water to reduce weight. But that may be good in a short term. It's not good for long term. Don't make a habit of it. When it comes to food, science is slowly and surely definitely reaching to understand what are the ingrained practices in your culture, but it may take many lifetimes for the science to totally reach there. So it is better to take food as it is eaten. We don't take a meal of only rice. We have rice, dal, sabzi, pickle, like that. And the combination has much more than the supplements. So number one point I want to talk about supplements is that they are for short term. Okay, they are only to help you. Say for example, you have got diarrhea, you have got loose motions, then we give you supplements of probiotics to help your gut bacterial strength till your body takes its own course and it recovers. Similarly, there are certain infections that unfortunately you may get, then we have to give you certain broad spectrum antibiotics. In the broad spectrum antibiotics, they have not only kill those bacteria which are infecting you, they sometimes decrease the amount of the good bacteria also. So we supplement you with probiotics there and then, so that your antibiotic takes its own course of treating your infection, and the probiotic supplement helps your gut to remain strong. You don't end up with antibiotic associated diarrhea. So these are about the supplements. Sometimes you get, illness and a long-term hospitalization or something like that. Hopefully, it does not happen to anybody. But there also the supplements initially for few days are given, and eventually the foods you can slowly take in, and you can create your good probiotic health. Here, I also want to talk about that antibiotics. They usually, majority antibiotics, if taken correctly in correct dosage as per recommendation of your doctor, for the correct, so say for example, you have one strain of bacteria growing in, and for that you have specific antibiotic, right? For minimal amount of time that you're going, your gut bacteria usually replenishes itself immediately. Certain cases it has been seen that it can take up to 4 weeks for your gut bacteria to replenish, right? So we would always want you to be healthier from the beginning. That's why we always say that if at all some infection comes to you, if you have had a very healthy background, it is easier for the doctor also to treat you with minimum number of antibiotics, minimum number of days. And eventually your overall foods are going to help you to replenish those gut bacteria.
Okay. So thank you. I'll clearly talk about how you can replenish, with the natural foods for kids. I'll tell about how we can particularly give for babies, for kids and stuff. So I love our Indian tradition, how it has so beautifully, as a part of our food culture, designed so many yummy foods for us. We've never heard of the term probiotic, right? We eat our dahi, we eat our pickle, we eat our idli and dosa and other things, and we've never eaten it as a medicine or a supplement and stuff. So some of the recipes that are like, you must have heard of the rice ganji or the rice gruel, which they say is what they do is any leftover rice in the night, cooked rice, they soak it, they add some water, and then they leave it overnight till next morning, and then the next day they add in a little bit of curd and they eat it with a little salt. And most important thing is all the probiotic foods that I'm going to cover, we need to not heat them, okay? Because the bacteria is going to survive at a temperature of 50 to 60 degrees. If you heat them, they're going to die. And it doesn't mean it's a probiotic, right? So as raw as possible and as uncooked as possible, that's the meaning of probiotic again. So this rice gruel was not cooked. It was eaten just cold, plain, with water and a little pickle and a salt or something, and it was literally drunk. The farmers, our farmers used to just go early morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock to their fields, nothing to cook so early in the morning. So this is what they ate. And I remember this is one recipe. There's another recipe in South India, which is like, these ragi balls that you get, nachni balls in South India, they ragi mudde we call. So you make them into small balls, again, put water, ferment it for overnight. And then next day morning, you just have it with plain dal, or again, which is sort of just a quick dal or pickle, something to eat it. So sprouts, yes, Khushbu, sprouts are also a probiotic. I'll just come to that. So that's your rice gruel. Your millet ambali. Okay, this is another recipe in which you cook millets overnight. You make sort of you soak them and you cook them, and then again leave it overnight with water. And next day morning, you just have it with a little bit of jaggery. You can add some milk if you want. It tastes like kheer, but never heat it. Okay, you can double boil it in the sense that you keep a broad vessel of water below, and then on top of that you keep the vessel of ambali, so that there's an indirect transfer of heat and it never really boils the ambali. You can, this is an easy recipe that we can give our kids when they have a fever or they have some illness, and then something is upset in their tummy. There's a small easy recipes that we can give. Then our pickles, you know pregnant women crave for pickles. Even breastfeeding women are like, mothers are, they crave for pickles. Pickles are the ones that I'm saying is, these are the ones that are traditionally made. They are kept in the sun. They are fermented for, for 8 to 10 days in the sun, and they're left overnight. Traditional methods without vinegar. They have the right proportions of salt or sugar or something, right? To keep and grow the bacteria in the pickles. So that's something for kids. I know they cannot have excessive salt and the thing and spice in the pickle. There are Gujarati pickles that are made with raw mango and sugar, right? And they are left over in the sun for 3 to 4 days. That is something that they can like with a roti or a paratha. Their khatta meeta, the sour and sweet. And there's a simple turmeric and ginger pickle that you can make with lemon juice. Keep it overnight for 3 to 4 days, then use it. These are all small little things, like you can pour that juice on your salad, on cucumbers, or dip the cucumbers in this turmeric pickle that I spoke about. Simple ways that we can add in probiotics to our kids. And then the sprouts, your green moong sprouts that are there, we can eat it raw. Once you sprout them, they're so easy to eat. So let your 8 month, 9 month old kid just pick up 1 or 2 sprouts and eat it. You can put it in the salad, or you can, simple things like that. Okay, that's one. And then there's something called kanji, which is done traditionally in the north, where they are fermenting pickles. Sorry, fermenting carrots and
Black
beetroots.
carrot.
They just cut the carrots and the beetroots, put in water, put in mustard seeds ka powder and salt, and then leave it in the sunlight for about 6 days or 7 days. And then it's very sour, but they drink it as a probiotic in winters. And then you have your gulkand, which is rose petals, which is a delicacy. That's made with rose petals and sugar and kept out for a week and then had in summers also. It's very common. And then there is our the western side. We're picking up sourdough, which is made with nutritional yeast. You can also try that, which is made from whole wheat, not maida again. And there is something called and microgreens is, we hear a lot about microgreens these days, where they are also have the fiber content, which can be called as a prebiotic. And because they're sort of sprouted, they have the bacterial from the environment around, that's also can be called as a probiotic if you eat them raw. Then you have something called kefir, which I have personally used. It's not native to India. It is becoming extremely, extremely popular in the West. In Russia, it has started from Russia, and now US and everywhere it's kind of very, very popular. It's a dairy product just like curd. So curd is Indian. I forgot to mention curd, but your curd, your lassi, your buttermilk are all good probiotics that you can give for kids. And kefir is similar to a fermented milk drink, but it has a different strain of bacteria that is not in curd. Okay, they say that it is a very strong, it has more than 50 strains of bacteria in kefir. That's why it's very effective. So, kefir, Kefir. And yeah, these are some,
So there is
simple Indian
so there is
probiotics.
miso. There is miso also that comes from Japan.
Yeah,
So
miso,
people
okay.
people have miso soup. So that is
So,
also something which is yeah. So you put it on that. So that is also probiotic. The soccer cod that is there, which they use the similar process as pickling. So they will be
pickling.
having cabbage, and then they will be, of course, putting it in the sun, letting it ferment, and that is also that's coming from the Western countries, and that's also basically probiotic. So we are using a lot of sun energies to
Yeah.
ferment the things. But the amla ka
It's
achar,
also
I would,
very yummy, right? It's not
yeah,
like medicine. You don't feel like you're eating medicine. It's a part of
absolutely.
our diet. It's a yummy
And
food.
if we all have even titsy bitsy time on weekends, and if we are making them at home and involving our kids in doing that, they would never want TV to eat that, you know. They would be, because they are cooking it, they are making it, they would love to try it.
Yeah, show how the sprouts are changing form and shape, right? You
Yes.
soak them
Yes.
in it, they become much bigger, then you see little roots coming out of it. So tell them and then get them involved in making the carrot kanji that I spoke about. Let them add the chopped carrots into a bowl, let them add water and the mustard powder, and let's involve them in cooking process. That's how they can see the food, taste the food, and then eat it as a family together.
So here,
So,
I would also like to mention, say, for example, last weekend we were in a retreat, right? So in the farm, they had on in the balcony they had grown a lot of betel nut, and there were roses. So we cooked our own gulkand, and we
wow.
just plucked the betel nut, put the gulkand in that, and had it after our lunch and had it after a dinner. All these things, very good digestive properties as well as the betel leaf. And the betel leaf, sorry, the betel leaf will have a very good digestive property, the pan ka patta, and then the gulkand is your probiotic added
Probiotic.
around that. With regards to microgreens, they're also good fibers, you know, so they will also act as prebiotics.
Mm.
So here, as we are now moving to the probiotic section of the lifestyle
Lifestyle.
thing. So
Yeah.
here I'll just add, and then of course Shalini will talk more what we are planning to do in our house also, and I'm sure people are doing it. So like here, I have this window. So I am now planning to have my empty vases, and I will ask my kids to soak their wheat seeds there and let the wheat grass come up, which would be our microgreen, or lemongrass, and then you cut it and garnish it on their sabzis or on their dals, and maybe have in smoothies, your fruit
Yeah.
smoothies and all those things. So those
Yeah.
microgreens, and they would really like it, because my 2-year-old loves to spray the the plants and all those things. So
Yeah.
these things, they really, it's part of their upbringing, and then they
Yeah.
always remember.
Yeah. True. It's memories related. It's completely different experience when you are happy and you eat the food, that you've done, you've created. So yeah, so in terms of lifestyle, right, we always say allow the children to play in mud. You
Yeah.
know, mud, sand are rich in the microbes, and sometimes I know we may consider this age as unhygienic and wash your hands and eat. But if you're in a safe place, if you know that okay, I'm in a natural environment, allow them to play in the mud. It's okay. It gets a little dirty sometimes. Doctor is here. I am not telling her. You have to tell Dr. Smriti that it is okay.
It's
Um,
absolutely fine. So, as I mentioned in the last gut health section also, because allergies always come up first on skin. So whether it is atopic dermatitis in childhood, eczemas, your itchy skin, your dry skin, people getting spiny danas here. Many kids have white spots here. These are all signs of early signs of allergies. They are coming up on skin. Pick those cues. Don't wait for them to get adult and then take a blood test and show them, oh God, you have so much problems. Your skin is telling you from day one of your life that you have to do something about the allergies. So there is a hygiene hypothesis in allergies. So the fun, and this is known for decades, that if you are living in an excessively hygienic environment, you are more prone to allergies. If
mm,
you do not live in a hygienic environment, you are less prone to allergies. And I'm not going to now compare a US Western child with an Indian child. I'm going to compare a city India child and a rural India child. So a rural India child who is actually playing with his cows and calves and muds and going with in the farm with his father and mother and all those things, they're hardly having any allergies. So I always give the example of mosquito bites. He might have one dot when the mosquito bites, but a city child who's like in excessively hygienic environment, he'll have big mosquito bite hypersensitivity wheels. They get bitten by what mosquito, but they will have 10 rashes on the skin.
Yeah.
And the reason is excessively hygienic environment. And it starts with sanitizers. So in 2020, people have been really excessive with sanitizers. We are seeing hand eczemas coming up day in and day out, your hands burning and all those things. It's much better to use soap water than your sanitizers, but they destroy even the skin bacteria for up to 6 hours it takes to replenish. So the excessive use of those sanitizers, making even your floors excessively sanitized, using lots of chemicals. As our first video on hormonal imbalance came, those chemicals are actually also, you are applying them on, they are getting in touch with your skin. The kids, you cannot stop them from licking the floor, right? So they are
Yeah.
actually taking in those chemicals in them, whether it is perfumes, whether it is fragrance, all those excessive chemical things are definitely causing hormonal problems in them, and everything is related. As we told last time also, the gut hormonal axis is, all those are interrelated. But
Yeah.
excessive hygiene is going to be a problem with regards to allergies. Let them play in mud. The more they play in the mud earlier on, the better for them. Because what happens is, we are giving them a very small dose of allergen to their gut, and for them, they are creating gut bacteria. So
Yeah.
eventually, when they will have a large dose of that allergen, it will not create toxin in their body, because they were they're used to that particular allergen. This is something we do a lot. And if there are certain parents here who have their kids, we call as desensitization. If somebody has peanuts allergy or anything, so in these things also we give desensitization. We give small dosages to let the gut start accepting it, and so that eventually it never remains a allergen. So let them go and play in the mud. It is okay if they have certain bacteria in their nails.
The
All right.
nails.
Yeah. So when they
So
come back, let them wash their hands.
I clearly remember that in my times, no, people used to complain ki, this guy eats mud and he's still okay. What is his stomach made up of? We used to eat, we used to scratch the wall of a mud or something. We were excessively, moving around with, as kids, we'll all remember, you and I will remember, we used to go out, there used to be a lot of cows in the neighboring area. We used to put our hands in gardening. So that's what I'm talking about. Even if you have a small balcony, grow one pot. Grow one pot of a tulsi, or grow one pot of a methi or something. It sprouts within 1 week. Let your child dig into that pot itself. It's okay. And eat that unwashed. No problem, because it's grown in your home. You trust it. So it's okay. Eat these unwashed foods. If you have a bigger balcony or a bigger access to something where you can grow a lot of fruit and vegetables, grow your tomatoes or capsicums. Try to grow some food and give them access and use it unwashed. Somewhere I've read that, because there's so much of live bacteria sitting on these fruits and vegetables and mud, everything. So you eat them. It's okay. Because you've not sprayed any harsh chemicals on them. Right, we have memories of going to picnics in our childhood, where we would just pluck a fruit right from the tree and then just eat it, right? So it's just the same theory, that this is a lifestyle change we need to bring back for all our kids.
Saranya here has talked about a very good thing, that her pediatrician has told to just mop the floor with hot water and rock salt, and
Yeah.
not use much of detergents and all those things. It's a very good idea. It's an interesting idea. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So now we've ended the topic with probiotics in terms of food and lifestyle, and now we were talking about the third topic, which is we are killing our good bacteria also in ways that we are not aware of. So let's
Yes.
talk about it. Dr. Smriti little bit touched upon sanitizers.
Yeah.
So let's go in detail.
So in that detail also, it is about frequent medications also.
Yeah.
It's about excessive and inadvertent use of antibiotics. Many of the developed countries and Western countries, they also have very, very strong and strict antibiotic policies. In our hospitals also, the policies are very strict. We do not just give it, right? So I would request you all as adults as well as children, for your children also, don't go overboard on antibiotics. Let your doctor decide because he or she knows the best for you. They'll give you for a correct duration and correct dosages. Don't go to, the shop and just ask, give me that antibiotic because I've got just a small sore throat. Now, if you have a small sore throat, even if your kid has it, it does not mean it is a bacterial infection, right? It can be viral. And in viral, the treatment is rest, fluids, and tender loving care. There is no need for antibiotic here. So when you go for excessive usage, it is also a problem because you are creating a community of antibiotic resistance. And then it becomes a problem for us doctors also when we are seeing patients in ICU who are in dire need for those antibiotics, even small kids in an ICU. And there the antibiotics are not working because they have already become resistant because community is overusing them. With that, because you do not need that antibiotic, because you may not be having a bacterial infection in your throat, what is that antibiotic doing? It is inadvertently killing your bacteria, your gut bacteria, which are good for you.
True.
So don't go overboard. Don't take antibiotics beyond prescription. Don't take antibiotics without consulting your doctor. Let he or she decide what is there. Sanitizers, I have told, chuck those sanitizers. It's better to use your soap water. Here, I remember that when we used to go for trekkings and all those things as scouts and guides, when there was no soap available, we used to take mud, rub it in our hands, and clean it. And that is the property of your mud or soil. It cleans your hands, right? So you do not need those things. Even excessive soap usage is also not required. If your hands are clean, right, you do not need to keep cleaning it because you do not have any bacteria. You clean them after using washroom. You clean them before eating food. You clean them after eating food. You clean them after you are playing in mud or all those things. I'm fine with that. But don't keep cleaning when you're already clean. And especially for those who are allergic skin, they are inherently dry. So that is also a problem. Now coming to the lifestyle part of which me and Shalini talk a lot about is the stress factor. Now you will think, what are we going to talk about stress and gut? Well, this is related. This is very much related. And now you'll also ask, why are you talking stress when it comes to my toddler or an infant? So how can they be stressed? Now they can be stressed when they don't want food and you force feed. Because mummy has made this big chapati and she feels that the baby needs this big chapati. The baby is not hungry because maybe half an hour back he must have had a bite of a fruit. So he does not need that. He just need half and his stomach is saying, I don't need. So what you'll do, okay, I will put on TV for you or I will put on iPad for you and start one jingle that you like and you just eat it. And once it's done, you are okay. And if you don't do that, you may have some peer pressure from the family or from the friends. Your kid is not chubby. So, oh my God, you're definitely not feeding him or her good things. So you then really feel guilty. You have a night of no sleep. Mind you, your stress goes to your baby's stress, especially till you are breastfeeding. Your stress hormones are going to your babies. And once you stop breastfeeding, still your baby loves you. He or she loves in your, your cocoon when you hug her or him. So don't be stressed about the weight and chubbiness of the kid and don't start over food feeding because there is something called as leptin sensitivity. So leptin sensitivity comes from brain where you are in tune with your gut. That is why it is told that you have to eat your food in 20 minutes. You don't gobble, 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 gobble. When you eat in 20 minutes, your hunger center activates at time 0. Your satiety center activates at time 20. So it is very important for the school going children to be woken up on time so that they have 10-15 minutes to eat their food carefully rather than gobble, gobble, gobble. Eating while running. Of course, it is absolutely okay to eat while running when you are a 6-month-old or a 1-year-old because they have that kind of attention span. It is fine. But as they are growing, let them sit. Best is to sit cross-legged. We all now know that Sukhasana is the best asana to sit. Sit cross-legged on the floor. Don't put on any mobiles. Please keep your mobiles away. They learn by observing us. Keep them away. No TV. Eat as a family. Eat talking and chatting. They love to chat with you. And if they are done. They stand up and they go about. That means they are done. It's fine. And then if you have to offer it again, whenever they ask, offer it. For that, here the discipline part also comes. If you keep offering them everything after every half hour, it's not going to help because their main meals are going to get hampered. So here I was reading a very good French book, Bringing Up Bebe. So in that, it was written that from 4 months of age itself, the parents have taught the kids to eat food 8 a.m., 12 noon, 4 p.m., 8 p.m. 8 a.m. is your breakfast, 12 noon is your lunch, 4 p.m. is your snack, and 8 p.m. is your dinner, and that's it. And then they go to sleep. So they don't ask for foods in between. That's the good thing also, because the mothers are also not bothering the kids running with the thali after them.
Always in the kitchen, because if you don't have a discipline about food and food timing, we are always in the kitchen what to cook. Suddenly the child asks, I'm hungry, we make and cook something. Or every time the child is not hungry, so we are trying different recipes. अच्छा ये खा लो 10 मिनट के बाद ये बिस्किट खा लो अच्छा 10 मिनट के बाद ये खा लो. So all this is a stressful thing for us as parents, as moms, and for the child too. This has a bad effect on the gut bacteria, right?
Absolutely. With that also comes that in between the meals, if you are giving them lot of sugary stuff.
Sugar. Yeah.
So
sugar itself, as we discussed, was like a food for the bad bacteria.
Yes.
Right?
So you are giving them inherently lots of sugary stuff. That actually also hampers with your leptin sensitivity. It's no doubt causing hormonal imbalances. It no doubt is creating some havoc in your signals, in the brains and all those signals. And those things have very addicting properties. How are they going to like the natural flavors of fruits and vegetables and the millets if you are giving them so much of sugar in between as lollipops, as chocolates, as toffees? People go out in their play dates, their bags are always filled with those sugar drinks and sugar stuff, and then they are eating those lollies. And so they stop responding. And then, of course, as Shalini said, that they feed bad bacteria. We want them to have good, healthy habits, and that starts from day one of life. And when before that.
Hearing to this amazing lecture when I myself, started learning about gut bacteria. So when you feed when you eat a lot of sugary things, so one thing is you're feeding the bad bacteria, right? And they multiply. And then how this addiction is actually caused is now, literally, you can imagine the millions of little bacteria in your stomach are craving for more and more and more food. That's what is causing you to crave for, again, I need that chocolate. Again, I need that cake and biscuit. Because the bacteria, bad ones that are living inside, are demanding, they are hungry, they want more sugar, more sugar, more sugar. So that's another part of the story, why children are addicted to this sugary and junk foods.
Yeah. So here we have a question where she wants an alternate for sugary sweets. I will give just one example, but I think for Shalini, you should do an Insta live only for the substitute of sugary stuff. So for example, you have these laddus. So if you can say, for example, crush peanuts, okay, you roast your peanuts, crush them, and take your sattu flour, right? So sattu is made from roasted kala chana, and it's a very normal drink for people coming from Bihar and all. So, and you have de-seeded dates, and you can put, say, some raisins and all if your kid likes it. All right. So you have some food processor and mixie in your house. You take those crushed peanuts, grind them a bit. Take sattu flour, take those crushed de-seeded dates, and then just start the processor. It will become like a kneaded atta, and then roll them. It takes 2 minutes to make that laddu. Now these are natural foods. They are not processed. They are coming with natural sweeteners. Most of them are fructose, not sucrose, which should be, maybe one of our talks next time, Shalini, that fructose has a lower glycemic index, right? And it also has natural seeds and nuts and your dry fruits. So it's a very good calorie dense food for our younger ones. Shalini comes up with lots of laddus herself in early foods. So those things are going to be good sweet substitutes, and involve them in the practices.
Many things. You just have to make up your mind and be firm that you're not going to end up by giving a chocolate for your kids' demand. Be firm. There are options are plenty. There is
Absolutely.
even small balls of jaggery, you can just keep it. There is palm jaggery candies. There are dates that you can stock in your house. You can make the 5-minute laddu recipes that are there in the IGTV that I have shown. Chocolate laddus that you can make at home. You can make barfi at home. Even your simple ragi porridge with jaggery is also a dessert. So plenty of recipes. I'll
Fruit.
keep sharing, guys. Fruits, yeah. But please,
Cut
the
your
only
watermelon, put a candy in it, and it's your watermelon candy.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what. So the most important is as parents, be firm that no, there are no entry to bad things in my house. And maybe, okay, one off occasion, one picnic somewhere once a month, once in 2 weeks or something. Okay, we are growing in a society. But you make up your mind that in my house, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Try.
Yeah.
Not get stressed. Please don't take it as a lot of stress. Try. Make an effort. That's it.
Yeah. And go for only 5-minute recipes, because we all understand we are working mothers. We do not have time. And if you are lucky enough to have your mothers and mother-in-laws, put them to work. Let them make the bigger recipes. You go for the smaller ones. Now, coming to the detergent and excessive cosmetics and excessive dishwashers, cleansers, and all those things, they are also having heavy metals, which are also toxins to your gut, and they also even they load your livers, right?
Also food for the, I've read in a place where they are also these heavy metals are food for the bad ones.
Yeah.
So all these cleaners, you can use a bioenzyme instead, a natural biodegradable disinfectant, salt and turmeric that a person, just said as natural cleaners. So yeah, avoid these they're not only just harmful for our environment, but they're harmful for our, little soldiers in our stomach.
Right.
So,
And
then
yeah. So one more alcohol.
smoking.
Yes. So smoking and alcohol during pregnancy,
Yeah.
it's going to be a problem. There is one more method of cooking, which is called as overcooking. Stop overcooking, because you're ending up, then you will have to put a lot of masalas and spices, because then there is no taste and natural flavor. Just, try to steam your vegetables, cook them. Your 6-month-old is going to, 6 or 8 months old is going to have this finger foods, right? From that age onwards, cook them in a kacha pakka manner, steam them, and then put a tadka. 1 spoon tadka of whatever wherever you come from. In north, it's a jeere ka tadka. In south, it's a kadi patta and rai ka tadka, and all those things. But when you are cooking in an open vessel, you have to put lot of oil. Now that is problem number one, because lot of oil means your liver has to put in lot of bile acids to digest your fat. Now, those bile acids are also going to hamper your good bacteria. We don't want excessive fat. All right. The second is when you cook in open vessels, your vitamins are heat labile. So your vitamins are lost. The third is that with over cooking, your natural flavors are gone. Fourth is that when you cook a lot, then your food is digested at the level of stomach. We are talking about good gut bacteria of our large intestine, which is our
It has to
colon.
reach there. It
So
has to reach there.
we want our food to reach our large intestine by passing the stomach acid, the small intestine, the liver bile, everything. So how does it reach the best, the large intestine, is when you are taking it in raw form. Now coming, how can I give raw to my small kids? Of course, the earlier food, like 6 months of age and everything, take the help of your soaked, sprouted, cooked porridges of the millets. Once they become older enough, 8 months, 9 months, 1 year, for finger foods, add your raw vegetables like cucumber and the carrots. You can maybe steam them to make them eatable. Sweet potatoes. Now try to shift the potatoes to sweet potatoes because they are more in fiber. And then have them in raw. Other ways to have them raw is stuffed parathas, because the inner part, the sabzis which you are stuffing, that is not getting overcooked, right? Similarly, your stuffed thali peeth, your stuffed chilas, besan ka chilas, moong dal ka chilas, stuffed uttapas, frankies. But you can always make jawar ka roti for the frankies. And I'm talking now for the older kids, of course, 2 years and all, when you have good teeth to eat all of them. Um, uh, so these are a few examples. Shalini, can you add more?
So yeah, so no overcooking here. A brilliant point, because we notice that we cook even the vegetables in pressure cooker. It's not needed. Pressure cooker is needed for your pulses, not for vegetables. Vegetables you can enough for 10 minutes a vegetable is cooked. Pressure cooker, it mashes, it just does all the damage, and we don't enjoy the firmness and the taste of the real vegetable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And I think, yeah, one more point I wanted to add was soda. So soda has now recently come up that we're eating a lot of soda, which is kind of killing the bad bacteria, good bacteria. So there's soda in our bread, soda in our biscuits, which we are consuming daily, and there is soda in cakes, all these processed foods. There is soda in anything that is fried. Even in samosas these days, there anything
Cold
outside
drinks.
will contain a little bit of soda.
Cold drinks.
Cold drinks, yes, how could I forget about that? Yeah, all these sugary drinks. So this excessive raising agents that are being used are consumed now, literally daily, is affecting our gut microbiome. So let's try to avoid that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think thankfully from the beginning we've not used soda at all in our cookies. And still people wonder why, how can you make cookies without soda? I'm like, it's okay. We can make, only cakes need a little bit of soda, but biscuits don't need. So anyway, that's an off topic, but yeah,
Yeah.
these biscuits is something that everybody consumes and it has a lot of soda, and that's killing our bad bacteria.
And
Um,
here I want to also talk about in lifestyle to follow something called as circadian rhythm.
uh,
This can be a topic on its own
this is actually
on
one of
the
the
benefits
most
of sleep and all those things. But when we are talking about stress in the babies, killing the good bacteria or the stress in the babies behaving cranky, you must have noticed that if your kid is watching a lot of TV, he is become very aggressive and offensive. Okay. You will also see that if a kid is watching TV till late at night because you are
will
finishing up your work, then he or she will become, he will be more cranky throughout the next day. He'll be not, he'll become a fussy eater. Now that's not a good label to put to the kid, because majority time it's the fault of us parents, we are wrong here. So that is where your circadian rhythm comes. Now, in circadian rhythm is very simple. See, Thomas Alva Edison invented this bulb in this century, you know, but our species is very old. We are also as old a species as a parrot or a pigeon or a bird. They all sleep by sunset. They all wake up by sunrise, right? Our bodily hormones, our bodily neurotransmitters, our bodily everything, you know, function is according to the circadian rhythm. When it is night, we are supposed to sleep. When it is day, we are supposed to wake up. For kids, you have to put them to sleep by 7 or 8 p.m. If it is not possible, maximum by 9 p.m. Don't go beyond that. For us as adults, also 10 p.m. is the maximum thing. If you want them to have, you do that. If you want them to have a good quality sleep, 1 hour before that, no television. If it is possible, more than 45 minutes, nothing online, prefer before noon, you know. Don't go beyond that. And if you're giving them a lot of chocolates and all those things, they have caffeine. So that they also have anti-sedating properties. They don't let you sleep. They're not taking coffee, they're not taking tea, but they are taking chocolates. And when you are giving them late night dinners, and you are even, and I'm not talking about very small babies who have so small gut, you know, that they need night feeds and all. I'm talking about, say, 1 year older whose gut is bigger enough that he can or she can have a full night's sleep. Maintain the circadian rhythm. Your thyroid is going to remain relaxed. Your pancreas are going to remain relaxed. The kid will not become overweight. You will not have insulin resistance. Your gut bacteria replenishes, repairs itself during night sleep. You cannot have a night party going on till 3 a.m. and let your kids sleep in the morning or afternoon to compensate. It does not help them.
Yeah.
They might end up getting fevers because of lowered immunity.
Yeah. So many parents, I mean, of course, we talk, our friends and everybody, most of the kids these days, because they're doing their online school from home, they end up sleeping at 11 o'clock. They have dinner at 9, 9:30. They're awake till 12, then they get up at 9. So it's again, you know, we feel helpless, but I think we should all make an effort to bring back that discipline and try to eat by 6:30, 7 max, 7:30 for our kids, and put them to sleep by 8, 9. It just gives us a lot more control over the whole day, and you know, because you're not going to fall sick. You have more time, you're more happy, your relationship is good with your family, there's no stress. So a lot of work to be done.
Instead of working till 4 a.m. in night, sleep at 10, start working from 4 a.m. in morning, because 4 a.m. is morning, not night. Yeah.
Good. But
So,
yeah, make an effort, take small steps to work on this, putting them to sleep early. Um, yeah. So there are a lot of questions coming in, so I want to address all of them individually. So let's quickly finish. So we covered the harmful effects are, you know, the excessive antibiotics, sanitization, washing using soap, sanitizer, stress, too much sugar, alcohol, soda, and of course, I think there's one more point that we left was too much meat and dairy also, which you'll cover.
absolutely. They are very much high up in your food pyramid, as I told. So don't overdo your dairy, don't overdo your animal foods, don't overdo your meat, poultry, egg, chicken, seafood. They are all in the animal food bracket. They do not have fiber. So if my teenagers here are going through this high protein diet to build the body and the muscle and having 5 eggs in the morning and 5 eggs at the night and coming to me with hair fall, that's because the biotin, which is the supplement for hair fall, gets absorbed and prepared by your gut bacteria. And the protein in your egg hinders the absorption of that. And this does not have fiber. So you do not give the food to the bacteria. And for the younger kids, itna hi to stomach hai na. You can only feed them this much. If you are feeding them with only, chicken, chicken, chicken every day, then it's going to be a problem. Now, here I would request all the parents that if we are talking about the culture of India, then take it in totality. Okay. So, if in culture it comes as, say, for example, in Western India or in Eastern India, as culture, it comes as eating your non vegetarian dishes, then also accept that in culture only it comes as to be eating it only on Sundays or maybe only on Fridays and Sundays. There, don't say that it is an orthodox thought process. And
Right.
because culturally I am allowed to eat non-veg, so I will eat it 3 times a day. That is definitely going to have a problem. And then they will not develop the flavors for the natural foods that's there in your fruits and your vegetables. And the base diet remains your grains. So the millets have to be the main thing for the kids because they're
Touched
fibers.
upon this a lot. We're also having this in the back of our mind. We covered this last time that we want a chubby kid, we want a weight gain. So we sort of tend to overdo these things. So let's avoid that because it has a side effect. And let's quickly go to the last portion, which is the now that we have understood how to protect our good bacteria, let's talk about how to kill the bad bacteria, right? There are natural ways that you can actually um, you know have a defense mechanism. So all our natural foods like garlic, which is a very good antibiotic, when you're sick, when you have like a inflammation, when you have a stomach upset, 1 or 2 garlics in the tadka is good. It's a natural, very strong, powerful antibiotic, but daily is not necessary. Honey is a good way. It has again antibiotic properties to kill the bad ones. Turmeric, all our spices are excellent. Turmeric, use your good turmeric, your pepper, your ginger, your neem. Neem is again excellent. It can kill a large strains of bad bacteria. And then there's also the copper bottle, copper which we store our water and drink. This copper kind of gets in the water in small amounts and can help kill the bad bacteria. So these are all traditional ways that we can just defend ourselves by killing them off. And I think I had included fasting as one of the method, which you had covered earlier as the following the,
Circadian
the
rhythm.
yeah,
Yes.
eating early on during sunrise and then eating before sunset.
Sunset. That is
Yeah.
very important because so people have now, it's become a fad also about fasting, but it is all about following your
So
circadian rhythm.
Dr. Smriti is actually telling fasting for kids. Literally, I was shocked when I heard that fasting for kids. I mean, how is that even not for babies? We are talking about this for 1+ year old children. So yeah,
And
fasting
actually
is good for
fasting in between the meals also. So
yeah.
please don't keep feeding them. Please try and
Yeah.
understand that this is no fad we are talking here. It is all science and you will relate to it. When it is time to sleep, it is time to sleep. It is your kitchen light should be off. Please stay away. Your dinner time
No
is done
ice cream at
and
night.
you are off to bed and sleep. And similarly, if you have had lunch, you are done with your lunch and then you are done with your food. We are not giving you a post lunch and then a post lunch and all those things every half an hour feeding. And this again, I'm emphasizing, we are not saying for younger kids. We are saying when their tummies are big enough to sleep the whole night,
Whole night.
1 year plus
So we
and
can
all those
consider
things.
this if you have 1 or 2 years plus, you can
Yeah, so
follow this.
so mothers know the best. It's as simple as that. You know about your baby the best. So these guidelines would be very generic, but you know as an individual what suits your baby the best. All right.
Yeah.
And with regards to spices, always go for a cultural thing that there are some spices with tasir which are thanda. So go for them in summers like cardamom, and which has tasir which is garam like garlic. Go for them in winters, and don't do overdo spices because they
Spices.
really load the liver. And sometimes the spices, if you overdo, you cut the natural flavors of the foods. So for the younger
True.
kids, there was one question in between which who asked that I slowly cook on fire, is it good or not? For certain recipes, it's fine. But for certain things, it might actually kill the natural flavors where we are trying to, create it. I, for now, am, we can steam even things like bindis and karelas and methi also, rather than slowly cooking on flame, because it just, overcooks and kills a lot of vitamins.
Okay.
So let's
Okay.
talk about the last thing,
One more thing I'd
postbiotics.
ask. So nowadays, I see a lot of women take their children to school, to KFC and McDonald's. Yeah. I'll not comment, but I guess you guys have understood. So somebody
Yeah.
asked about copper bottle. Yes, again, store it overnight and drink. You don't have to
Yes.
store the whole 24 hours because excess also is bad. So let's
So,
always, whatever remedies in moderation is great, excess is bad. Yeah.
yeah.
So we can
So
keep that as
excess of any medicine becomes a poison. Whether it is your Ayurvedic medicine, herb, spice, or your medicine, that can become a poison. Copper, if you store for longer than 8 hours, it can actually cause some toxicity. You can feel vomitatious and nauseous. So you can always say store for 8 hours, use it, then store again. And if you feel that some part has been stored for longer, you can shift it to your steel bottle.
steel bottle. Yeah.
So shift it to
Very
the
nice.
steel bottle.
Yeah.
So don't go more than 8 hours. Can we talk about the latest thing that is
Yeah.
there?
Now, something very interesting that Dr. Smriti is going to talk about, which is still not, spoken too much about. Nothing has come out in the blogs or in the media. But she, being in the medical fraternity, reading a lot about the latest research, speaking to experts who have, more than 30, 40 years of experience in the gut health industry, I'll
Yeah.
not talk. What is it that you want to say?
So here I will like to talk about something called as postbiotics. And
Okay.
Dr. Nutan Desai, who's the senior consultant gastroenterologist in Fortis Hospital, Mulund, she was kind enough to tell me about all those things, and which, I would love to share the knowledge that I have got. So
Okay.
postbiotics, what are they? Now, prebiotics, yeah, so prebiotics are the food for probiotics.
Okay.
Probiotics are your gut bacteria, right? Which you can even take raw as your yogurt, as your pickle, as your curd. And then there are the end products of these probiotics, right? The end products, the digested end products, the killed bacteria, which are called as the postbiotics. Now, they
Okay.
can be
So the
the
dead
protein
bacteria.
part, the cell wall of the bacteria, the killed bacteria. So here comes the factor that we were talking, that if you take something as a probiotic, you should not heat it, because
Yeah.
more than 54 degrees Celsius is
Okay.
when the bacteria gets killed. So it
Okay.
no longer remain a probiotic. But then when it gets killed, still it has some goodness in it, and it becomes what is called as postbiotic. Because now
Ah.
people are coming up with postbiotic supplements which have longer shelf life, which don't need to be refrigerated, and which can even work on people who have suppressed immunity, immunosuppressed people. If I may give you a very small corollary so that you can understand, it's a very similar to like live vaccine and dead or killed vaccine, right? So we have lots of rules with live vaccines. We have to just keep them at 4 degrees Celsius. You have to have a gap of 1 month between two live vaccines. If you are not well or you are having fever, we don't give a live vaccine. But in killed vaccine like tetanus and all, there is no such rule. They don't need to be, there's so much of refrigeration required, and even if you're not well, you can be taken. So postbiotics are the dead part of bacteria, and now the science field is finding out that they are actually wonderful things. They are anti-inflammatory, they are
Okay.
antioxidants, they are anti-aging, they help you to glow, they are anti-acne, they're anti-hair fall, they are anti-dandruff, they are anti-cancer, they help you with your blood-brain barrier, making your brain stronger. They are helping in all your problems like Alzheimer's and all those things, and so many more. And so in the natural food things, so as I discussed with Dr. Nutan Desai here also, so there we have certain fermented foods like idli, dosa, uttapa, dhokla, and we cook them. So they cannot be called probiotics, but
Science
they
is
are
catching up.
postbiotics.
I always say science is catching up.
Science is
So
catching up.
the
So they are postbiotics. So
okay.
you have your idli, dosa, uttapa, dhokla, even your usal and misal. So the sprouts we were talking about having raw as probiotics, it's a very good habit because we are trying to give variety to the kids, right? But if you are having them cooked as usal and misal, they are acting as postbiotics.
Because we
So,
kill them with heat, so they become postbiotics.
yeah, so they are the fermented foods and they are also beneficial for you. So you have them, include lots of varieties in your diet.
Great. So amazing. So all the idli and dosa that we were having all this while are actually good.
So it's very
We,
good to actually not only soak your dals so that the fiber anti-nutrient properties go, whichever are the dals which are sabut dals, which can be sprouted, sprout them and cook. Whether it is
okay.
your chickpea, your safed chola, or your kala chana, or your moong sabut dal, or your moat ki dal, or your chauli, all these things you sprout and you cook. It's much better. So you can have your curries also.
Okay. Now, I think that brings to an end of the session, but I wanted to quickly take some very good questions that are related to the gut health because we have already crossed our time of 1 hour and it's going to reach 1.5 hours. So we'll give it
Yeah.
10 minutes to answer as many questions possible. So the Tanish asks, how much fiber should be ideally given per day, sort of a thing.
So it's a 25 gram per day for an adult. If you go for 50 gram or something, you will end up with bloating and everything. For a kid, I will suggest you to talk to your doctor and your nutritionist so that, for every single age it is generated. And always, as mothers know the best, keep an eye. If you're going overboard with your fiber, it will itself cause bloating sensation and, gassiness and constipation, and the kid's tummy will fill up very fast. And
Okay.
and this thing which you were saying that licking the chalks and licking the walls, it's all called as pica, which is the earliest sign of deficiency of calcium and iron.
Hmm.
So when you are taking those fibers soaked, then they help in absorption of your zinc, calcium, and iron and all. But when you are taking them in excess, they will hinder their absorption. So
Okay.
just look for those small cues as not a kid having bloating, filling up tummy very fast, not eating a lot, licking up the chalks and the walls and everything, which is pica. Yeah.
Okay. Then next question is from Khushbu who asks, can we refrigerate the sprouts and eat after a few days? So
What do you think?
um, I think sprouts, because they also die, right? If they are live bacteria, then they also have a survival time. So I would say try to finish it within the same day. Uh, Then can I give sprouted green moong to 10-month baby? Yes, right? Just correct me if I'm wrong, okay?
Yes.
I'm just trying to answer as many questions possible. So my son, 7-year-old son, has small balls in his elbow in both hands. What to do? How to treat it?
So these dots that you have, it is called as follicular keratosis. It is the earliest sign of vitamin A deficiency.
Okay.
For treating it, your dermatologist will give you vitamin A based creams or alpha hydroxy acid based creams. But for you to prevent deficiency, because it's, skin being mirror of internal body, it is telling you very early on that you are having early vitamin A deficiency. If it goes stronger, the kid can have night blindness and all those things. So get the eyes checked with the ophthalmologist, because Bitot spots, some yellow spots can come up on the eyes as the early marker of vitamin A deficiency. And give vitamin A rich foods. Vitamin A is there in colors. So yellow, green, orange, red are your colors. Yellow fruits, papaya, sweet potatoes, beetroot, and all the capsicums, different color capsicums, green leafy vegetables, all these certain fish, they are vitamin A rich. So go for them.
Okay. Uh, about get pasta. 1 second. Session. Thank
So they asked about nuts. So we should soak the nuts and seeds also and give. For the
Yeah.
younger kids, like 6 months and 7 months, when we are early giving. So Shalini has the seeds powder also, right? It's because
Yeah.
the problem with the nuts is the choking, because their sucking reflex is shifting into swallowing reflex. So early, don't give them nuts. There is a risk of choking. Give them nut powder, seed powder, and put them in their porridge while you are making, and just assess, how the kid is behaving. So every new food, the thumb rule is every new food to be added after 4 or 5 days for a young kid of 6 months or 7 months.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking for more questions on the gut bacteria. Sorry, gut health. Can we give raw cucumber to 10-month-old baby?
Yes,
Okay.
finger
So,
foods.
okay. So simple, somebody's asking, share simple skincare for kids. And how do we stay away from, what kind of cosmetics to use and stuff for
For
kids?
kids, don't use any cosmetics. They don't need any cosmetics unless you have a school function and you want to do a small makeup or those. That's okay, but not for routine. Even for small babies and toddlers, don't put soap. Also, there are good bath oils that are available. To take baths, they are soap substitutes. If you see that traditionally in Kerala, they'll put one cap of coconut oil in the bucket of water to bathe, and they'll just bathe the kid with that. That's the
Wow.
best way, because
Wow.
moisturizing is the food for skin. Dry skin is itchy skin and irritated skin. Moisturized skin is happy skin. So keep them
Happy.
moisturized and use coconut oil. That's a very good oil.
Yeah.
Don't use sarson ka tel. Sometimes it can cause hair follicle infection, which is folliculitis, and it also has certain properties which can cause sensitivity of sun.
Yeah.
So use your coconut oil. That's a very good oil. Don't use cosmetics for kids, because all these cosmetics, they have they behave like estrogens in the body and they cause hormonal imbalances. Don't use them
What
as a routine.
about what about sunscreen for kids?
Don't use any sunscreen. Let them go out in sun and make their vitamin D. It is very important. Vitamin D is food for our body. Every single small to big disease is linked with vitamin D. It's okay if they are tanned. Skin turnover takes 2 months. In 2 months, their tanning will go. So whenever they grow old and become teenagers and go to their, colleges and have their body image, we can always do something about them. Just start a sunscreen routine and they will be okay with their tanning. Let them be tanned and let them go out in sun. But if your kid is, say, photosensitive, it's causing allergies and all those things, then there are some physical sunscreens which are only zinc oxide based, just like calamine and all. So they are not chemicals, and then they don't absorb in the skin. So those can be used in certain cases. Ask your dermatologist.
Okay. Great. So I think most of the questions around gut health are answered. And there's one more thing. My 5-year-old kid has frequent stomach pain. Uh, what do you think could be the issue with that? So guys, so there are some very personal questions related to the child. So the diagnosis has to be done. So you can always contact Dr. Smriti. Go to her handle, send her a message, and she'll let you know how you can consult her, or if there's any specific problem related to skin or any other things that you want to speak about. Definitely you can get in touch with them, because just talking a general diagnosis may not be a good one. We can talk about all these lifestyles and recipes related questions, yes or no questions.
There is one question about mixed millet. Don't
Uh,
mix the millet as a routine. Try
yeah,
to give them every single millet, because
I
every
agree.
single grain has a different digestion time. We don't want to load our gut too much into digestion. When will it do the repair? Give them single grains as preferred, but occasionally, and there are certain grains mixed, Shalini will tell you better, but from the digestion angle, it's better to give a single grain.
So I also agree. We do have like a sattu mau, but it's not something that I would say you have every day. Um, Keeping it simple is always good for the gut. Multigrain
For
is good, but have it once a week or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the reflux things, there are multiple things, but increasing your three things actually. One is increasing your fiber. Second is keeping your mental stress at bay. And thirdly, following your circadian rhythm. Have your dinner by sunset, 6 or maximum 7 p.m. Your reflux is going to go. It will become a past. All your tablets for your reflux will become a past.
Yeah. So, guys, there are a lot of questions that are related to eating habits and millets. Specifically, I will cover them through more live sessions and specifically IGTVs and all that. That's why I'm not addressing it here, since we've crossed 1.5 hours. Fussy eating things and all. You can always message me and we can talk about it. And I'll always have another live session. But this is limited to gut health, and I think we've covered a lot today. We will share, save the live session. So if you want to always refer back and share it with more moms, that would be awesome. And if you missed the first half, you can always watch it again. And yeah, that's it for the gut health series, I guess, right?
Yes.
And do just ping me if you want Dr. Smriti to cover other topics. We're also, frequently talking to each other to cover the most common topics that worries moms and dads. So yeah, that's it. We spoke about prebiotics, postbiotics, probiotics, then all the ways of killing the bad bacteria, the ways that we're destroying our good bacteria, a lot of it. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Smriti, for your time and wonderful knowledge that you have shared with us.
And in the
Um,
end, as I always say, skin is the mirror of internal body. Please keep looking for small cues. Your skin tells you up to 2 decades before what is going wrong in what might go wrong in you at 40 or 30. Start listening to your skin, and it's going to help you a lot.
okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalini. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you everybody for joining and doing your bit of support for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.